Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 22 of the Good Anime Palette podcast. For all the American listeners, hope you all had a very, very good happy Thanksgiving. And for the non-American viewers or the people who don't care about that shit, happy Tuesday or whatever time you've been listening to this. As always, it's Will, and as always, it's Jason. How are you doing, buddy?
My Thanksgiving was pretty good.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you're American, so you actually celebrated Thanksgiving then.
So I celebrated Thanksgiving without all the traditional like turkey, yam,
Green bean casserole.
Yep. Instead, I had roast pork. I was actually going to ask for a chicken or a goose instead.
At least something to carve, right?
Yeah, but I did get dessert. So I got a lemon meringue pie, a pumpkin pie, a banana cream pie as well. A slice, not an actual pie, because that would be excessive.
Well, I mean, that's the point in Thanksgiving, then, right? Like excessive gluttonous enjoyment with family.
Yeah, so I gave thanks.
Yeah, no, I think I don't usually celebrate, because me being Canadian, like we celebrate our Thanksgiving a month earlier.
Right.
Don't question it. I don't even know why. But usually, whenever we did a Thanksgiving, we would just get Peking duck to carve instead of a goose or turkey. It's just, I don't know. I don't rate turkey at all.
So it's like Jewish Christmas kind of thing.
It's non-traditional. It's whatever. It's just basically an excuse to cut up a bird and eat it. So yeah. So back onto the anime front. Let's put away the pumpkin spice. Let's put away the cranberry sauce. Let's talk about what the real good stuff is. As always, it's anime. And manga. And in my case now, manhwa as well, right? But before getting into my section, I know that you spent some time reading and watching a few things.
Yes.
Even prior to doing the homework for today's episode.
I finished it, some of the homework this morning.
Yeah, we had a brief chat about it too. So what have you been getting up to over the past couple of weeks?
So several things that I will mention is I watched Blade Runner Black Lotus.
All right, okay.
So it premiered...
That's been making the rounds on Netflix?
Yeah, it premiered... no, not on Netflix. It premiered on November 14th, 2021. It's a co-production between Crunchyroll and Adult Swim. And it is directed by Shinji Aramaki and Kenji Kamiyama. So, and also Watanabe, which is Shinichiro Watanabe, who is the director for things like Samurai Champloo, Cowboy Bebop, is the director of also Blade Runner Blackout 2022, which I watched.
I made the mistake. It's all Blade Runner 2049. That was on Netflix. That's why I thought. Anyways, my mistake.
I mean, I also really like that movie. So Watanabe serves as creative producer. And it is a 3D CG anime. Okay, so now that I've gone out of the way, this is my very brief review. So I'm a big Blade Runner fan. I like the original movie. I like the sequel movie 2049 a lot, despite a lot of people not liking it. I like the tone and the feel of it for sure. This anime does not capture any of that. It is actually pretty generic, feels pretty hollow, and simply put, just don't watch it. The end. You're better off watching Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045 instead.
Wow.
Yes.
But you hate that show, though.
Yeah, I do.
You hate the adaptation.
I do. But I will say that Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045 is better.
Yeah. Oh, just in case anybody's wondering why sometimes we might sound a little bit muffled, it's winter in Hong Kong. Surprisingly, we have seasons, right? So that means the air is a little more dry. My throat's pretty dry, so we have throat lozenges.
Yeah, we have throat lozenges just so that we can actually talk.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be a trouble for us when we start getting
it's going to be
cotton
bad
mouth halfway through.
Yeah. So look, it's just very hollow. Like, oh, girl wakes up with amnesia. She arrives in a city that she doesn't remember. Oh, but she has something that is connected to her memories of her past or whatever, and she needs to unlock it. Oh, the cyberpunk city it looks fine, but it's full of ruffians and people, alleyways where fights happen and stuff. If that all sounds generic and unfamiliar and familiar to you, because it is, that's what happens in Blade Runner Black Lotus.
No, it's a shame to hear. I mean, like, it's a huge franchise, right? Like, we can say it's a franchise now, right? For Blade Runner, now that there's more than just the original movie.
So here's the thing. I watched Blade Runner Blackout 2022, and that one is actually hand-drawn animated. And actually, it was decent, to be honest. But I don't understand the CG, 3D CG. Like, there has to be probably some decision that was made to maybe look more fluid, more animated. But, yeah, I just don't think, even if you were to hand-drawn it, it would be that good, just because the feel of what a cyberpunk city is supposed to feel like, desolate, like, like Dick Tracy, like noir, like rain and everything. It does have some of that, but it feels very nothing.
So who does this show appeal to then, right? This is a collaboration done with Crunchyroll based on a property that was huge in the early 80s, 90s, and then having the new one coming in a couple years ago with Ryan Gosling as the main lead. So who is this for?
So when I watched this show, another show reminded me of this, which is, I think, Star Wars Shadow of the Clone. Now, that show is actually really, really good. But the animation style, the fluidity, the look of the characters are very reminiscent of that. And I would say the major difference with Shadow of the Clones that Black Lotus lacks is the story. And also what cyberpunk genre is supposed to be. Not necessarily that, you can't break new grounds. But if you were to replace that cyberpunk city with a lot of different settings, it doesn't matter. Like, it would fit if you just adjust a couple of things. So I think that in that sense, the cyberpunk thing is merely just to tack on to the Blade Runner franchise to entice people to watch it because it's in the universe.
And that's a shame too, because like, when you're watching cyberpunk, the cyberpunk theme itself is the main reason why people watch cyberpunk. And it sounds kind of like straightforward, so of course, right? But like, you can it's like why people like watching like high fantasy stuff or like playing anything that is like that distorts reality. The whole point is for you to immerse yourself in something and lose yourself so that you can actually feel like you're part of that existence of what's happening on screen. If you can't connect with that, then most of the meaning of what you're watching is kind of gone.
Yeah, and I really like cyberpunk. Things like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, I put in high regards. So I would like to think I know quite a bit about cyberpunk and have a high affinity towards it. And this is not that. So,
all right. Well, I guess we move on then, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, one thing that I've been watching.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about this, actually.
Controversial. It's not animated. There are some animations, but it's mostly
what?
3D. Yeah, there's 3D CG
Oh,
in it,
okay,
right?
yeah.
I actually watched the live action. So there's a new show on Netflix that's been making the rounds after that huge explosion that was Squid Game. Right? I didn't watch Squid Game. I already watched that. I'm not talking about that today. Instead, there is a new show on the block, a new number one, a new top, highest growth rate, most popular Korean-based TV show that's making the rounds on Netflix, and it's called Hellbound. Now, Hellbound is a live adaptation of the same of the same name of the original manhwa that's currently on Naver's webtoon platform, and they already have quite a lot of chapters. A lot of webtoon episodes out, but like in original Korean. Whereas the English version, currently I think it's on episode 5, and then there's like another 24 or so that are hidden behind a paywall. So you can definitely access it. I have enough coins to read it. It's just that I only just got finished watching the TV show, and therefore like I haven't necessarily gotten time to fully read everything. But I can safely say there's a lot of like faithful adaptations, right? So Hellbound is essentially set in it's actually kind of grounded in reality, but a more dystopian reality where supernatural beings that come from this quote-unquote hell have now ascended to Earth to drag down, would-be evildoers or people that they deemed like unworthy of ascending to heaven or to maintain their existence on Earth and drag them down to hell. So there are like these 3 huge lumbering monsters that basically jump out from like the depths of hell and just start wailing and beating the shit unassuming people, and then it turns out when people start digging up these victims' pasts, they find that actually these are actual criminals. They've been tried for, rapes, murders, like money laundering, just doing some real like bad guy, bad woman shit. And so what then happens is when people start seeing these crazy creatures come up from what they think was of hell, supernatural, like super religious cults start popping up, and then therefore people start thinking that these monsters are related to you maintaining your purity, maintaining your stance as an innocent human being, and that the reasons why they're coming up to Earth is to punish evildoers and show humans that hell exists, and that if you do anything to piss them off, that they will drag your ass down. Now, of course, there are going to be non-religious people, people just who don't want to like get into the whole religious zealot shit, right? And it's a very close look into what incredibly like nut job cult behavior entails, especially when you start mixing it in with like heavy religious elements. Now, it's not to say that like they pertain to a certain faith. I think that it was good for them to actually steer away from that because it can be very sensitive. Rather, they just focus on the actual concepts of hell, of morality, and all that. It's a really wonderful show. It's really well done because of the fact that it is very grounded in what you would expect a normal human being would do in a situation like that. Now, again, I'm not endorsing the live action. It is on Netflix, 6 episodes, easy watch. What I am endorsing, on the other hand, is the actual manhwa, because this is very rare too. The director of the live action actually wrote the manhwa himself.
Yeah, and that's the part that actually fascinates me, because usually when you get an adaptation of any sort, the original source is written by the author, and that person would also technically not have the know-how to then also be a director of a huge production.
And you might not know much about Hellbound because it's one of his newer properties, but you might have watched some of his other movies, like The King of Pigs, Train to Busan.
I watched that.
The follow-up to it, Peninsula, that's all him. And so like we talked about this before because I brought this up with you. You're like, this guy actually wrote the whole thing himself as well, while he's doing his directorial shit as well. It's pretty nuts that he's able to balance out his life like that.
Yeah, so huge props to the guy, which is Yoon Sang-ho.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I haven't watched Hellbound, nor have I watched Squid Game. It's on the to-do list eventually, I guess, but
You don't need to watch Squid Game. You can just watch Alice in Borderland.
let's not anger everyone, shall we?
What you should do, though, is get the Webtoon app. Check out Hellbound, done by Young Sang-ho. It's free to read. If you want to read the latest chapters, you will have to pay, but, the model. You wait a little bit, more episodes come out for free. You just slowly read it. It's just the same as waiting for the next episode of an anime to come out. You just wait for a week, and then something will show up, and you continue your journey. You can pay to read more. And I think if you are a new subscriber to the Naver platform, you do get a discount on your first couple of coins. So get on that.
All right. Another show that I have watched and finished is a show that premiered in winter 2014 and is produced by Doga Kobo, which is a studio that has done My Senpai's Annoying, that's currently airing right now, and it will be airing Shikimori Isn't Just a Cutie, I think, in April. And I put these two series in high regards because they're both based on mangas, and I like the manga a lot. And this is Engaged to the Unidentified. It is one cour, so I think 12 episodes. To my knowledge, there is no English translation because it's based on a manga of the same name. It's a comedy rom-com slice of life. It's about a girl called Kobeni who, on her 16th birthday, all of a sudden, two people rocked up to her house and is like, yo, I'm your fiance, and my little sister is tagging along, and welcome to the family. And it's just about the hijinks that comes with her own Kabeni's own family and this new family that apparently she was a heavily part of during her childhood years, but doesn't remember for some reason. And then they bring it, that they reveal that. Another thing that I also feel like is crazy to mention is there are supernatural elements that are kind of weird, but It's spoiler, so I won't mention anything more, but it was incorporated pretty well. This show may not be very well known to a lot of people, but if you were to up to date with your memes,
Oh yeah, that's how I know about Engage the Unidentified.
for example, a young girl dancing in front of a television, that is Engaged to the Unidentified, and there is a lot of those, I guess, cute, wholesome moments.
That's Mashiro, right? That's her name.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And
Again, I only know it because of the memes.
yeah, so they also have random references to One Piece and Ultraman for no reason. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? The show is quite typical, but it was very nice. The comedy is done pretty well, I would say. It's kind of like, I would say, a 7.5 out of 10.
It sounds very much like a Dogakobo production.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the stuff they do is like very like supernatural comedy, slice of life comedy. There's usually like a comedy elements to whatever realm they're going into, right? Like they did Himoto-chan, they did Nozaki-kun, as you mentioned, Senpai's Annoying. Like there's that style that they're like going for when they're doing adaptations, and it's cool. I mean, like when you described Engage the Unidentified, yeah, I wouldn't have doubted that it was Togakobo that did the production for it.
I think the production is also very nice, and I think this cements in my mind that Dogakobo is, their repertoire is basically slice of life stuff, but somehow it's a little different spin on it. With Shikamori being a cutie, it's a woman being badass. With My Senpai's Annoying, it is a really short petite girl with her huge senpai.
They also did Sleepy Princess, right?
Yeah. I don't remember.
Sleepy Princess in the Demon Castle? I
Yeah.
think that's also Dogakobo.
Okay.
I think it only came out last year.
I watched some of it. It's pretty good.
Okay. Well, it's also about a cute little girl just doing cute little things, right?
Right, but wrecking shit.
Right. So
But like in a very hilarious way.
it's pretty apt that Dogakobo also did that then.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Dogakobo is really high in my books nowadays.
Yeah, it's like for them, it's like they're not doing like crazy high production shit, but it's like they're consistent with what they do, which is one thing you rarely see in any industry, where they're able to at least pump out stuff that maintains a consistent quality of enjoyment, and you know it's rare to see right now.
All right. So that is the end of our What We've Been Watching segment. I have read 2 other mangas, but because they are tied in with news, I will now mention the news stories.
Nice.
So,
2 birds, 1 stone.
exactly. Speaking of slice of life rom-coms, Misaki Takamitsu's Skip and Loafer manga has been listed with a TV anime. They have not announced when and not announced which studio would be producing it. But I read the 2 volumes that are available in English officially by Seven Seas Entertainment. And also, this manga is going crazy in terms of the ratings. It's a 8.05, if I remember, on my anime list. It is ranked 600. And the manga is ranked 7th in a survey done in the 2020 edition of This Manga is Amazing, which is a very well-known Japanese survey for male readers and female readers.
Kono manga wa sugoi.
Hi. And then is also nominated for the 13th Manga Taisho Awards in 2020, and was also nominated for the Best General Manga category of Kodansha's 44th Annual Manga Awards in 2020. So those, I was going in with very, very high expectations, and to cap all of this off, I will just give you a plot synopsis of this manga, Skip and Loafer. So, Iwakura Mitsumi always had big dreams of leaving her small town, advancing to a top-tier university, and then contributing to the country before retiring back to her hometown. So focused on her goal that she is oblivious to all the other ways she comes out short, much to the chagrin and concern of her friends and family. Can a naive girl make it in Tokyo? And she goes to high school in Tokyo. The reason why I read the plot synopsis word for word is because that's the most generic bullshit I have ever heard in my entire life.
Small town bumpkin girl moves to big town Tokyo
With big dreams,
Can
right?
they survive? Can they make their dreams come true?
It's like a wide-eyed actor going to L.A. or New York Broadway and being like, "Oh, I'm gonna make a life out of
It's
this."
always like that. I mean, like any manga or any anime that we talk about usually has like those like, oh, we're finally going to the big town. It's like Jujutsu Kaisen, right? The main character goes into Tokyo. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go shopping. Or like when the Kurasuno team in Haikyuu, it starts playing in like the Tokyo regionals, right?
Let's go to the Tokyo Tower. Oh
Yeah.
my god!
Yeah, it's like, oh, there's a tower over there. It's like, that's not the Tokyo Tower. It's bigger than what we have in our town. It's like, it's a lot. Like it's very much like a common theme that we see with not just slice of life, but any manga and anime in general.
I mean, Chobits is also like that too.
Yeah, country bumpkin dude goes to Tokyo and picks up a not sex robot. It's just a robot.
Bro.
We keep it PG. Keep it PG, okay?
Okay. So, I read the two translated mangas by Seven Seas Entertainment. I think they're up to volume 6 in Japan, though, which I checked on Wikipedia. So, what the fuck? But then I was like, okay, let's read it. And actually, it's very good. It's, I would say, an 8.5 out of 10. Kind of more... I kind of need to figure out if it's more 8 or more 9.
Well, the fact that the manga itself is above an 8, right? That's 8.05,
yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and it came out of nowhere. What I will say that the plot synopsis is extremely accurate, but the defining factor is the interactions within the characters. You get your icy cold hot girl, you get the aloof hot guy, you get the country bumpkin, and you get the recluse nerd, and you just get the best friend trope guy, and they kind of just mix together, and it's actually quite good in terms of relating to characters and character interactions. It felt very nice, and I'm not surprised after reading 2 volumes that it got an anime adaptation.
Well, there you go. That's one thing to look forward to. Another thing that I'm looking forward to, I actually don't really know much about this, but I saw the production company that's behind it. We're going to have a pretty eventful 2022 of Cloverworks anime.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm very stoked because last year it was Mappa. No, this year was Mappa. Now, next year, we got some Cloverworks, baby. So what's getting adapted?
So, Cloverworks is slated to adapt In the Heart of Kunikochi Tsubaki, which is a manga based by the same mangaka who did Teasing Master Takagi-san and When Will Ayumi Make His Move? Now, When Will Ayumi Makes His Move is also slated to premiere in, I think, April as well. And then they announced this, but there's no specific date for in 2022. I also read the 2 volumes for When Will Ayumi Make His Move? Because I really like Teasing Master Takagi-san. I read the manga, and I Googled the spin-off manga because there's no English translation, but just reading the plot synopsis, so that warms my heart already. So I had a good kind of expectation going in. And When Will Ayumi Make His Move is essentially mainly the interactions between Ayumi and the president of the Shogi Club and their kind of cute-ish interactions. It is very not gag-centric, but the chapters are split into very, very short chunks, similar to Teasing Master Takagi-san. And it's just really funny because Ayumi, being the younger one, is actually a bit taller and more, because he quit the Kendo Club to join the Shogi Club for no reason. And the Shogi Club is only one girl who's the president. And then kind of is like, he's very blunt and straightforward, like, why did you join this club? I was like, because I think you're cute. And then she just like blushes. So it's kind of like a reverse Takagi-san, but more in your face in terms of the romance and banter between the two. Because he is not going to confess to her, even though they both pretty much know where each other stand, until he beats her in a game of shogi. And let's just say it's going to take a while for that to happen because he keeps losing.
Right. Well, how do you feel about the the heavy slate that Cloverworks has for the upcoming year. Because let's be honest,
Yeah,
they did a lot of work for 2021.
Yeah.
But it's been a mixed bag, right? For every horror Mia there was a Promised Neverland season 2.
And then there was
Shadow's House, but then there was also the last episode of Wonder Egg.
yes, exactly.
So it's like there was a lot of good stuff we could talk about for Cloverworks this year, but at the same time, it was balanced out by the not so great. Like, look, I tried to give season 2 of Promised Neverland a chance, and in the end, I had to stop by episode 4 because it just started going down this rabbit hole of wow, they're not going to make this any better.
Okay.
And we talked about Wonder Egg. Less said about it, the better. Let's just enjoy what we consumed.
Okay, so Cloverworks, I think, currently has
This is
5 works.
Yeah, there's Tokyo 24th Ward,
which is airing in January next season, which we will cover.
As is Akebi's Sailor Uniform.
Which is also in January, which we will also cover.
Yep.
My Dress Up Darling.
Yeah, that's the other one.
Which I'm very excited about. That's like, I'm super happy about that. Spy X Family, which we're both super, super, super excited about.
That one I fuck.
And then now, in the heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki, which is basically one of those again, but instead it's about ninjas who are in love. That's it.
They'll probably start releasing that one in April or beyond. Like they'll have like the 3, right? Akebi, Dress Up Darling, and Tokyo 24th Ward for the winter season, and then spring or maybe even summer. That's when they'll start releasing the other ones.
Yeah,
I expect Spy X Family to be later on in the year, though.
I would say, if I had to guess, Spy X Family would be in the fall. The ninja rom-com will be in the summer. And then we have
the 3 coming up
in winter.
Literally in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So that's the announcement. They are Skip and Loafer. I am pretty excited about. I think it will be pretty chilled. The manga's really, really good. You should check it out. Kunoichi Tsubaki, I can't check it out because there is no official English translation. But the other 2, when will Ayumu make his move, and Teasing Master Takagi-san, is out in manga translations, and you should check them out. And it's funny because this mangaka now has 3 works premiering in some capacity this upcoming year. So, dude is doing good, I guess.
Right. Dude else is doing good after having a lot of bad the last couple of weeks, last couple of months.
Yeah,
we should probably watch it when it screens. We're talking about World's End Harem.
So listeners who have listened to previous episodes might have heard of my rant about World's End Harem. And despite the fact that we have not watched a single second of the anime, we have actually talked quite a bit about it. I won't get into the plot details because
you can go into Mal for that.
And also I will just go crazy again. But now they have said that they're going to premiere again on January 7th of 2022. Originally, they were going to release it this fall. They released the first episode early, apparently realized that something is wrong, and decided to pack up their bags, go back to the studio, and hunker down and fix whatever problem.
Quote-unquote, closely examine the anime's production. So they decided to rescreen this 3 months after the delay. They did an event screening, right? I think you said on their YouTube channel.
I don't know, but event screening they did somewhere.
Let's see what they did this time. I don't know. I don't really care all that much at this point, but you know that like with the plot synopsis that it's gonna generate a lot of discussion.
It's such a dumpster fire. Let's see how big the fire gets. All right.
Yeah. We have one more bit of news, right?
Yeah. Speaking of fires,
this one's a doozy.
Shonen Jump is a weekly manga, and if you don't know what Shonen Jump is and you call yourself a manga and anime fan, you might want to reassess your credentials. But Weekly Shonen Jump is probably the most well-known manga magazine in existence and has been the case for eons. They have produced endless amounts of shonen shows through their manga source. Now, it comes to no surprise in general that physical media, in this case is the manga magazine, the book form, obviously, is not doing too good. And right now, Shonen Jump dips below 1.4 million in print circulation. Now, for context, for people who don't understand 1.4 million, which it's just a number, right? The manga's record circulation was 6.53 million in 1994. And then this has undergone the worst decline in 8 years. Sharp decline. And in 2017, it was 1.915 million. And then it dipped even lower, 1.6 in like January of 2020.
Like steadily per year, we're losing around anywhere from 100,000 to even 300,000 in print, right? Like we're at a point now where we may actually go below the million mark in like 3 years.
Now, this is not to say it's all doom and gloom for Shonen Jump, because, as Will and I probably have mentioned endless times and will continue to do so, Jump Plus is an online manga platform that have given rise to awesome manga such as Kaiju Number 8 and, of course, Spy X Family. They also have digital versions released on simultaneously.
Simulpub for sure.
For Mashal, for example, which I follow.
They're also doing remasters or like re-releases of old stuff, so you can definitely catch up on your Bleach and your JoJo's. It's just a wonderful platform to be able to just have in the palm of your hand and read manga.
And a lot of it, especially like the first couple of chapters and the latest couple of chapters, are for free, like completely free, with no strings attached.
Some of them are 100% free.
Oh yeah, like what was the one? Cage.
I've been reading Kaiju Number 8 free this whole time.
What was the other one? Cage of. Oh my god, I can't remember now. Let me check on my phone.
Yeah, so it's cool to see that like the platform itself is growing, and I think we need it to grow too, because like let's be real, when it comes to like getting paperback or hardback media nowadays, a lot of times it's more for like collector's items. It's more for like nostalgia purposes, or just having something like tangible, something you can actually hold in your hands and like have on your shelf to remind you that this is something that you're really, really into, something that you really want to invest your time and your money into. But as we start seeing things getting online more and more frequently, it just becomes easier for us to just have a all-in-one solution to just access manga that we want to read. I mean, like we already do that with anime. I mean, okay, there's really no other way to consume anime now. Like you can watch it on TV, but realistically, who's really watching on anime TV now?
Technically, you can buy the Blu-rays, but who does that anymore? No one does that. I mean, yes, Japan does that a lot, and it's really expensive, and it's a good source of revenue for a lot of people. But internationally, it's not really a market.
I mean, Japan, Netflix is growing. Japan has like its own streaming platforms too, specifically for these kinds of shows, right? So I don't see this being a bad thing in terms of the reduction in print, but more that it's a sign of the times.
It's a natural thing, really. And another thing, earlier I was mentioning a manga series, Soloist in a Cage is the one that I was talking about. All of it is available on Jump Plus. All 20 chapters is at 7.81 on my anime list, which is really good. And also Chojin X is also on there as well, I want to mention, which is the Soyushida's new property, which I'm a bit lukewarm on, but we'll see how that goes.
That one took a while to release, like upcoming episodes.
Chojin?
Chojin. I haven't read it since the first one dropped.
The first one was like 70, 80 pages, which is kind of crazy. And then for the longest time, they kind of was like, oh, we'll announce something at some point. And then now it's kind of being serialized, and every week there's something. But yeah. And also, oh yeah, let's not forget, Chainsaw Man Part 2 is coming to Jump Plus from the magazine.
Best move.
Best move ever.
It was a really good move for them to do that. Not to say that like people wouldn't buy the manga like if it was in print, but you can definitely bet on people accessing Jump Plus or Manga Plus or whichever platform you use. I think there's 2 different versions on both Android and for iOS. So I only see the digital age has already like taken over. It's been around for God knows how long now.
I mean, streaming is king nowadays, right? Like,
but people just like print. People just like having something you hold in your hands, like that you can actually feel as you turn the pages. Which I admit, I do have copies. I have all of my Tokyo Ghoul at home.
Right, but
that was all of my Naruto at home.
That was back in the day. I mean, I have those too.
But yeah, I bought my Tokyo Ghoul 4 years ago, and I bought the latest ones for Tokyo Ghoul Re like a year ago.
Right, but I would say that I am more picky about the physical
yeah.
media that I bought. I mean, I would buy art books of properties that I really, really like. Like I bought the Persona 5, no, sorry, Persona 3 and Persona 4 art books, and they look gorgeous. And there are other, similar anime or manga fronts that I would purchase the physical copy. I think it's just now more of, how do I say this? Like a delicacy, like something that I would go in the extra mile if it's something that I have a huge fondness over. But it comes to no surprise for everyone that online streaming, online digital manga is the future. So this just further cements the fact that print is going to die really slowly, and it's obviously the case for Shonen Jump. But that doesn't mean that Shonen Jump is going to fold at all, because they have their online digital platform. And I think, there was a news story where we mentioned about Jump Plus and their subscriptions were like several million users or something. I remember at some point.
Well, I mean, the fact that it was only $2 to subscribe, it's $2 to read all the manga you want. How could you pass that up?
So I also mentioned another manga. Speaking of digital manga, Azuki.
Yeah, that's the Kodansha one.
Yes. I don't know if they're officially affiliated with Kodansha, but it just so happens that pretty much almost all of their manga, not all, but 90% of their manga are all Kodansha stuff.
I mean, Blue Lock's on there.
It's pretty good.
Right? If you want to read, Blue Lock is, the anime is coming. So get ahead of it and read some manga first before the first episode drops.
But Azuki is, I think, $5 US per month, and I'm subscribed to it. And they do simulpub too for To Your Eternity, for example. One of my favorite mangas, A Sign of Affection, they have done that too, and so on and so forth. And they're adding new titles every week.
I mean, $5 for Azuki and $2 for Shonen Jump Plus, that's the same price as that's even cheaper than a Netflix subscription.
Okay, so now that we have gone to this point, I need to make a plea, which is Seven Seas Entertainment. If you're listening, I don't think you are, but I'm just putting this out there. Please have a digital manga service, because of all the English publishers, I really vibe with Seven Seas Entertainment and their catalog. I really, really want a subscription service, please. That's it.
Yeah, well, hopefully your plea reaches the offices of Seven Seas. Who knows? I think.
Will my message sail the Seven Seas?
But let's be real though. I think at this stage, not there's a reason why we have Jump Plus, we have Azuki, we have Viz Media, where you can buy online. You don't have to buy paperbacks anymore. You can just buy CBR versions of them.
I mean, same with Yen Press and Seven Seas Entertainment. But the issue is the digital manga is so pricey, And if there was a subscription service or a huge sale on Bookwalker, then maybe I would purchase a lot. But it's really hard when
it gets to that point where you might as well just buy a paperback, right?
Yeah, because the price difference is actually not that great.
I think it's $2, maybe $3, and it's in the end, it's also storage issues too, right? If that's the case, I might as well have something on my shelf, and then maybe later on get a bigger shelf. Whereas buying manga, the files aren't small, man.
I mean, there was an interaction of Will and I with some of our friends in Taiwan, and they were taking pictures of their manga collection.
Do what they have? Those what are they called?
I think we actually talked about this once, but we're going to talk about it again.
They have they have calyxes. If you don't know what a calyx is, you must have been to IKEA and saw those square 2x4 or 4x4 bookshelves, and they might have 2 of those 4x4s, and they're all full of manga. And that's not even their full collection.
At least several hundred volumes.
And then Jason just comes in.
I just waltz in and be like, yeah, guys, I'll show you my collection. And I took a photo of an external hard drive because, honestly, that was my collection.
And everyone was just like, what is that? Is that... You just zoomed in, right? Why don't you open it yourself? And then there were some that actually took you seriously. And then there were others that were like, oh... Smart guy, okay.
No,
all right.
but I wasn't being cheeky. No, I mean it was double because I do want to be cheeky.
Some people just want to live in the analog world, okay?
No, but really, that external hard drive contains all the digital manga that I have consumed and bought. So, You know,
Yeah, you know, of course, your purpose of doing that was twofold, right? It wasn't just it was also just to be like, haha, I have all this, and you need two bookshelves for that.
and it was magical. Their reaction, it was just like sit back, mastermind, stroking the cat, just be like, yes, feel.
There is
feel
something
this
there is
pain.
there is like something that's awesome though about feeling like the pages of a manga as you're ripping. I mean, like whenever I'm in Japan, I do manage to find a place that has English manga to read. Like I spend at least like half an hour to an hour just reading whatever's on there.
I think when it comes to physical media in relation to anime and manga, the main consistent physical thing that I would buy is art books. I don't really buy figurines or anything. Nothing against it. I just don't.
I don't have the space for it.
I don't have the space for it. And the art books are just nice because they show behind the scenes. They show like concept design. There's usually some sort of interview with the staff. And it's just really cool to see things that normally you would not see. With the mangas, I just want official translations. And I don't have the shelf space. We live in Hong Kong where every square foot matters so much.
Yeah,
So
the thing I think like it's no longer like a hobbyist thing. For us, it's more like if we're going on a commute, it's just the same as listening to music or playing like a mobile game on the way to work.
it's an economical thing in terms of economical with your space.
Yeah, and your time too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like you get on the bus, get on the train. It's like a maybe 25-30 minute commute rather than just, watching Netflix or playing mobile games or whatnot. You can pop open the latest chapter of Kaiju 8
Yeah.
or Spy X
Yeah, and
or Sakamoto Days or whatever platform you use.
and Bookwalker now is doing the thing where they sell by the chapters now instead of the volumes.
Wait,
And-
really?
Yeah. So they sell by the chapters for some, and then they also sell by the volume for those. So if you want to, you can double buy, which is really annoying. I do love you guys though, Bookwalker. Please, but yeah, like they're doing that now. Like, I mean, we're going a little bit on topic, but Reborn as a vending machine. I now roam the dungeon.
Yeah.
I bought 2 chapters. So it was just 2 chapters. It wasn't even a volume. It's just 2 chapters. It's really stupid. I love it, but it's so stupid. The Reborn as a vending machine property I'm talking about is really stupid in a good way. All right.
I think that wraps up the first half of today's recording. We've got a lot of interesting tidbits in terms of what's getting adapted, what's getting re-released, and what the future holds for anime and manga. We already know what happens, right? There's going to be like 5 or 6 isekais that will be adapted in the next 6 months.
How many light novels are going to be adapted? Blah, 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 blah. But I think it comes to the point where I realized, like, last episode, we had, like, so many anime adaptation announcements. And we were worried about what we're going to do for winter because we're waiting for the premiere dates to be confirmed.
It's fine. It's here now.
Things are literally coming in. So it's very good for us and very reassuring that things are moving along and things are being confirmed.
Like, let's be real. Like, for the day-to-day like anime fan, when stuff gets released and then like confirmed like 1 or 2 weeks before it actually airs, that's fine. But because this is something that we actually do as like a pseudo job, like we need to know when this shit happens so we can actually plan out what we consume and what we can feed back to you guys, right?
I mean, we literally had to shift episodes because to sort of sync up with the premiere dates, and we can't do it on that week because we only get 1 episode. So we want to give it a little bit of breathing room, right?
Yeah. Speaking of which, get ready for 80 after episode 6. That's one thing we had to make a shift, and we actually had to wait several months before we were able to record it.
But we did it.
Right.
We watched The Missing Link. Okay. One last thing, Will. So Blue Period and 86 Part 2 both have production issues.
Oh, yes, that's right. They got delayed by how
1 week.
Yeah, 1 week.
But here's the thing with Blue Period in particular. Now that they're delayed 1 week due to production issues, and same with 86, that they said it's production issues, so hopefully everything's okay. With Blue Period, though, because it's staggered release, it is now in this weird spot where is it 2 weeks behind the Netflix release? Because it's supposed to be premiering on Japanese TV first, then on Netflix worldwide, then on Netflix Japan.
See, this is also why I think like it's going to be hard for all these publishing companies to start getting stuff out of paperback and into digital because they have all these different agreements going on, right? Like just for one show, local TV, Japanese streaming, worldwide streaming. These are just three, but like one production issue, and it looks like it could fuck everything up.
Yeah, and they didn't make it clear how the streaming thing will work. I think it's just whatever. It's just going to be delayed 1 week, but it's just weird, I guess, that like now these things can be the norm. So,
like, imagine if Komi Can't Communicate also got delayed.
I mean, it
Same
is
thing, right?
It is a staggered release, but yeah, if it gets delayed, it's like, well, what do you do? Because of course, people are going to talk, and it's just going to be really annoying.
That makes it difficult. Again, I'm not saying that like anime reviewers and weebs and all that like are the first like the priority, but it does make it difficult for when you do want to give like an unbiased and completely objective opinion on a show. When you don't even have a regular release schedule due to the fact that it's staggered, it's hard for you to properly judge it. Right? We have to wait longer than expected, and sometimes people just jump the gun and just make a review based on initial impressions, which again is not the best.
I mean, we should probably do a bits and pieces where we talk about things like staggered release or binged release or normal weekly release, and
I mean, when you told me that like it's 12 episodes for
JoJo,
yeah, that one's annoying.
Yeah, and it's premiering soon, and then all of a sudden Super Crooks, which is done by Bones.
Yeah, Bones. It looks cool, by the way.
It looks cool. We'll check it out for the next episode. But yeah, it's just like, dude, all these different release schedules, all these different agreements, all these different streaming platforms, it's just a mess. And I think that's just the way it is going forward.
Like at this point, you might as well just if it's for Netflix, you might as well just put it in jail. Just put it in the Netflix jail and wait till like there's enough shit to come out and then just release it all. Right? If you're not gonna do like a proper week to week release, just release it in one block later on.
All right, I think we should stop.
This is it.
Ranting, because even though I do think our discussions of these issues are very relevant,
we need time.
We need time for our main discussion topic. So I think we are going to take a break. Will, right?
Yeah, we'll pause here. We'll get back to you in a couple seconds, and then afterwards we will go into today's discussion topic, which is it's going to be very.
I think you say that every time.
No, this one's actually going to be like a real tough one to do. I know what we want to say. I just don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. That's it. So we'll catch you guys in a couple seconds.
Peace. And welcome back to the Good Anime Palette Podcast. This is episode 22. I'm Jason. Will is here.
Welcome back, everyone.
And we are going to talk about... It's actually what we call a paired episode because...
It's a two-parter.
It's a two-parter. And we are talking about weapons.
Yeah, this time around, we're actually going to be talking about like physical elements of some of the shows that we watch. A lot of times we talk about more thematic stuff, more either philosophy or logic, emotions and shit. This time around, this is stuff that we can grab by the hands and actually say, yep, we're talking about physical weapons. We're talking about magical weapons. Now, today's episode, we're actually going to be doing the first part, which is physical weapons.
And then the next episode, we will have a discussion on magical weapons. So before we actually go into the discussion, Will and I have actually tried to put a lot of thought into how this episode is going to be structured.
By a lot of thought, we've been planning this for almost 4 months.
Yes. And I just want to, before we actually start talking about physical weapons, we want to put out some disclaimers. Now, I know, like, why are we doing this? But we just want to be on the same page with you, the listeners. So then, going forward, we're all good. So, as you might expect, talking about just weapons in general is a topic that is so vast that you can probably just do a podcast purely on weapons themselves. And in anime and manga, probably can do quite a bit of it. Yeah.
I mean, like, when we talk about like a lot of like shonen shows, a lot of action adventure shows, like, weapons are ubiquitous with them. Like you can't really have a show that talks about like that focuses on action, on fighting, on combat, without even seeing a weapon, even
Right.
if it's not the main focus.
So we will split this main discussion topic in kind of 2 to 3 chunks depending on how the discussion goes. The first chunk will be dedicated to the definition of physical weapons, or the main discussion of what a good physical weapon is, what is a physical weapon, so on and so forth.
In our definition as well, it may not sit well with everyone, but like our word is the most important. So
I mean,
suck it.
You can't. Okay, look, hey, guys. We're not trying to start a war here. We're not trying to go up in arms. Get it?
Yeah, but our definition will pertain to today's discussion that fits within the GAP discussion.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily to say these are facts as much as to try to get involved in the discussion of physical weapons such that you can hear our insight and also probably have opinions of your own, whether you agree or disagree. That's the whole point of this discussion.
Yeah, at least lay out a foundation as to why we made certain weapon selections for today's episode or for the next episode.
Now, the second chunk, which kind of melds in with the first chunk depending on how we're going to discuss, is our own memorable weapons that pertain to anime and manga. Then the reason why we separate that is because the third section is our anime or manga recommendations that pertains heavily on the theme of physical weapons.
Yeah, that one that's quite tough to do because it was tough because when you really think about it, like you have very memorable weapons. You have moments where like a weapon's used and it's like one of the greatest scenes you've seen, but it's not always the case where the weapon itself or the discussion of weapons is like the main focus of a show. Now, of course, the shows we discuss at the end, there's going to be varying levels of it, but the weapons themselves are going to be extremely important, and we're also going to make sure that these are shows that you should definitely check out. So let's get into the first section then.
Right. Okay. Which is, let's start with a banger. What is the definition of physical weapons? But I actually have to say kind of caveats of what is we don't consider a physical weapon. So, for example, hand-to-hand combat, like CQC, or like mixed martial arts, we did not consider them physical weapons because our stipulation, which is just arbitrary, which we just as a GAP bros do, is to separate your fists or melee combat with an actual equipment,
Like
or
a handheld weapon
or an object of some sort.
like a physical extension of yourself. So we actually may even do a topic discussion on hand-to-hand combat, on MMA or CQC in anime in the future.
I'm definitely saying we will do that because there's a lot of them and a lot of good ones too.
Yeah. So when it comes to like, putting people in headlocks or lead locks, bull rushing somebody, or just, actual like hand-to-hand combat, this will not fall under physical weapons.
Also, we decided to exclude mechs, machines, and vehicles because even though they are physical and can be used as a weapon, to include them, it will just be too complicated and it will go on and on. So things also like turrets and stuff like that obviously is a physical weapon. We exclude that. Explosives are kind of iffy, but I think for explosives, it's a case-by-case basis. Biological weapons, I don't think we'll touch on that too much, but it is definitely a weapon. But, it's again, the reason why we actually have dedicated a huge chunk to defining what physical weapons are is because it's really complicated when you think about it.
Yeah, like for example, like how you said no mechs, right? But what about like exo armor, right? Like for example, like Inuyashiki, where like somebody has been modified to the point where they're pretty much a cyborg, but they also would be able to pull out like a turret out of their arm or like shoot missiles out of their head.
Or what happens when Violet Evergarden has kind of mechanized arms, but then she can handle herself very agile, like her agility and her kind of combat know-how is very, very good, which is evidenced in one of the episodes in the TV series.
There's also stuff like technology and cyber warfare, right? Like hacking into someone's defense systems to launch nukes on themselves.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's technically like using a computer or some sort of component to basically physically manipulate someone's defenses.
But is a software technically a physical weapon? Like where does the boundary lie? So
we're talking about a bunch of numbers, like a bunch of ones and zeros, right? So like where does the physical element like end, and then like the technology or even magical at some point begin, right? Those kinds of gray areas, rather than trying to justify their spot in physical weapons, we're just gonna outright just say it depends. It's not the best answer, but it really does depend.
now, Will touched on a point, which is physical weapons that have magical properties. It is, as you said, Will, it is kind of a case by case. What is our definition? Because you, the listener, might have a different perception of what a physical weapon is, and obviously, we can't agree on everything. So we have decided, at least I guess I have decided, that if it's a physical weapon that has magical properties, it is not considered, quote unquote, what we would call magical weapons. Because when we get into our magical weapons episode, we would talk more about like abilities, skills, spells, wizardry, mages, that kind of thing.
Incantations and all that.
Yes.
Curses.
For like, if I had to boil it down, physical weapons is your swords, your guns, your bows and arrows, those kinds of things. That is the really one sentence definition.
Which is fine, because just within those 5 you mentioned, right? Like, there's already so many that we can choose from all the shit that we've watched over the past however many years we've been watching anime and reading manga.
So a reason of that it is so hard to define what a physical weapon is when it comes to anime and manga, because it's fictional and because it's animated, certain liberties can be made that really stretch the idea of what is a physical weapon.
Yeah, a lot of times, like when we watch anime and read manga, they're based in like real life surroundings and environments, but they're not always grounded in reality.
Right. And sometimes weapons, as we said with like cyber warfare and hacking, does not have a physical shape or a form, but I would still consider it somewhat physical rather than magical, obviously. Also, do these weapons break the law of what we call conventional reality? Does it distort it? Does it alter it in some way? And even if it does, like, for example, Will, if I have a sword in my hand, just a regular sword, but I, quote unquote, imbue it or enchant it with fire, so it becomes a fire sword, which is very typical in a lot of mediums, does that count as a magical weapon, or does it count as a physical weapon with magical properties? And I know I'm being very pedantic here, but that's kind of the point of this discussion.
Exactly, right? Like it's not that black and white. It's very much a gray area kind of topic, because of the fact that when we talk about anime, specifically a lot of the shows that we're talking about, a lot of them are very like either dystopian or fantasy or supernatural. So therefore, like even if you do see a physical weapon, it's not always just used like as is. Just because you see a katana or you see a kunai or you see a gun, that's not the only purpose it serves.
Yeah, because if we were to talk about weapons of any sort, and especially when it pertains to physical weapons, if it's just a generic cop with a gun, for example, or a RPG or launcher, right? Like, that is in itself not that interesting. So therefore, if we want to have a real good discussion about our memorable physical weapons, it makes sense that those are kind of not, quote unquote, your conventional idea of a typical physical weapon, or there's something about it. Like, if I were to talk about, I don't know, let me think, like Cowboy Bebop, there are guns in it, but most of those guns don't carry any significance other than it's just a gun. Will and I will be talking about Black Lagoon, and yeah, there are some, like a couple of guns that are very prominent and important, and they stand out, but a lot of them also are just like whatever, right? They're just guns. They're just machine guns. They're just turrets. They're just whatever.
Yeah, they're tools for the character to further exemplify something that's happening within that scene, whether it's to assert dominance, whether it's to basically like do self-defense, but it's never like necessarily the focus. Like the gun is just a gun. The sword is just the sword. But in other cases, when we see weapons of sorts, they do play into the general theme of the series. Like, we will talk about those as this discussion develops as well.
I think that also another thing to consider when it comes to physical weapons is actually not about the weapon itself, but about the user or the person that is using that weapon. Because, as you might expect, it's like two halves that need to come together. A weapon by itself, unless if it's like automated or whatever, so we're excluding that exception, it's just by itself cannot do anything.
Yeah, like for example, Samurai Champloo, right? It's very much set in a real life environment. Everybody who has a sword is trained in it in one way or another, and there's no like supernatural magical elements to it. So what separates the holder of the sword and the sword themselves, right? Like, is it just skill? Is it just training? Is it just mental and emotional aptitude? Like, there's a lot of things that we want to focus on rather than just the weapons. Like, when you talk about like Mugen for one, right? Like, he is a very, very good like sword fighter, but he also fights a completely different style from everyone else because he's his own man. He's his own character. He has his own way of fighting, more barbaric compared to the usual more stoic and disciplined samurai.
Yeah, which is my style, I guess.
So clearly we can see which team you're on for Samurai Champloo. But
absolutely.
Again, is the focus on the sword? Not necessarily, right?
No, because by itself, it's just a sword. Oh, it might be a good quality sword, but it's just a sword. And also, the proficiency of the user is extremely important. For example, I think a very easy comparison to make is from Attack on Titan. The air maneuver gear is obviously a trademark of Attack on Titan. But I would argue that, for example, Mikasa, who is kind of portrayed as, or Levi, is portrayed as the people who are so good with it. But if you put it in the hands of, like, let's say, me, I'll be like, the fuck is this? Even though it could be the exact same weapon, and then if you give it to Mikasa or Levi, they would just fly and kill everything with ease.
But you give it to Armin,
bruh.
Yeah, you're kind of fucked, dude.
Bruh, Armin.
You give it to Sasha, you're kind of fucked, dude.
I mean, there's no potatoes on those air maneuver gears, and with Armin, he probably needs glasses. He doesn't have glasses, right? But he probably.
Yeah. So again, sometimes the weapons themselves, the gear they use, is just a further extension of the person's character. How good they are at something, how bad they are at something, how disciplined, how emotionally capable they are, how strong they are. They're merely tools in those instances.
And when we talk about the weapon user, it is extremely important because they give meaning to the weapon. So, for example, the motive of a weapon user is extremely important because, for example, with a sword, you could strike someone down or you can defend yourself. So, in those instances, they're both polar opposites, but it stems from the same user and stems from the same weapon. So, therefore, there is no, unless if it's like, a cursed sword or whatever, in which case then you're getting back to that gray area of if it's magical or physical. For all intents and purposes, the motive is determined by the user, and their proficiency and skills is independent of usually the physical weapon themselves. I also think another important weapon that comes to my mind is Psychopaths and the Dominator. In that story, that cyberpunk anime, which Will and I really like, the main...
Still haven't watched season 3 yet.
And the movies, but we'll get to that, right?
I'm more likely to watch the movie than to watch Psychopaths 3.
I heard Psychopaths 3 is okay.
I heard it's okay, but they retcon. No, they didn't retcon. They rebooted it.
Right. But the Dominator, which is the gun, because in that society, kind of violence is outlawed, and if you were to exhibit hostile behavior, you're immediately branded and need to be dealt with.
If your social quotient or your mental quotient exceeds a certain number, then you have to be taken out, right? And that's how the weapons come to use, right? Like, without that system in place, those weapons are fucking useless.
And also, the Dominators cannot be used by everyone. In fact, it can only be used by selected individuals because they have some sort of like biometric imprint, right? So it will not activate unless that user were to try to wield it rather than some guy off the street. But there's also certain cases where the user wants to do something with the weapon, but they cannot for the life of them because the system in place does not register. And that is the main theme or I guess the main villain of season 1, really.
Yeah. So again, like when we talk about how the weapons themselves aren't always going to be like the focus, rather they're just a tool to further exemplify the theme or the characters themselves. Psychopaths is like a classic example of it, right? Like, okay, let's be real. The Dominator looks fucking awesome.
It does.
Have you ever seen there's a guy that made an actual 3D render of it.
Yes. Their ProZD has
yeah, dude. They
has a
look
web
fucking
show.
dope.
Yeah.
They look fucking dope. But in practice, when you actually use them, it's super dependent because of the fact that, yes, as you might imagine, with a cyberpunk dystopian society, sometimes, society fails you. Sometimes things just don't work out the way you want because of how broken society is.
And this is not really a spoiler. The Dominator has 2 modes, which is stun or to kill. And unfortunately, the wielder cannot determine that independently. It has to be assessed by the quote-unquote system in place, such that if the system registers that, oh, this person needs to be killed rather than stunned, it does that, and there's nothing the wielder can do about it other than, I guess, not pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like quote unquote straightforward, right? Like if they're a bad person, they need to be killed. If they can be, if they can be, saved, then you can just stun them and then rehabilitate them. But that's again not down to your own free will. It is predetermined by the system that you live under. So when you, for example, see someone who registers as a kill target, but when you actually see them with your own eyes, you just look at them and you're like, wait, why are you targeted? Why are you like triggering the kill? The kill trigger. Why can't I just stun you, or why should I even shoot you? But that's not up to you to choose.
Right. So going back to away from the user now to talk about the weapon itself, a source that I usually find a lot of inspiration from when it comes to discussions or a way to structure definitions is to borrow from role-playing games, RPGs. In this case, Dungeons and Dragons, which is a very well-known tabletop RPG. They have split melee weapons into the different types of forces. So there's blunt or belligerent, pierce, and slash. And then when it comes to range, there's like projectiles, your bows and arrows, and then even though it's not D&D, you would add in guns, especially in anime and manga or in real life and whatnot. And I think that that's a very good kind of introduction to the different types of physical weapons when you classify them, because there's definitely a difference between a hammer and a sword and an axe. But how do you differentiate them? And D&D obviously have thought that through, and they have done it as so. And things like projectiles are definitely physical weapons, because think of like kunais, think of shurikens in Naruto. And some of those instances, those kunais or those shurikens are imbued with ninjutsu. So it is a very, very hard subject to very definitively say that this fact is 100% right all the time. And yeah, like, does bullets count? Well, what happens if the gun doesn't use traditional bullets, use, I don't know, laser? Like
Souls,
like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think it's good that we have this kind of definition set in place. Again, we're not saying that like anime weapons are based off of D&D, like the definitions of what weapons should be. But at least it's a good bit of reference material.
Right, exactly. And the fact that we used it also for our anime and manga villains proved very effective in trying to convey what we're trying to say, because they did it more eloquently. And therefore we utilized it.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of like real life grounding from D&D as far. I mean, like as much as it is like based on like high fantasy and all that, right? You still have those real life elements. The fact that like a sword is still very much a sword, right? A club is very much a club, and in our cases here, a gun is a gun, until it's not a gun anymore. But then at that point, like you start getting into the gray areas again.
Right. Now, another aspect that we kind of determined is considered a physical weapon or not is kind of their limitations. And as you might expect, one of the most well-known limitations of real physical objects is wear and tear. And if it degrades, I think it convinces me that it is more of a physical weapon than a magical one. I mean, if it magically heals up, I'll be like, that there's magical properties in that. Like, it's already less physical in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most shows don't really have that like built into their portrayal of weapons. Like you don't really see like weapon degradation for the most part, but you do see it in some cases, especially when it comes to guns.
Yeah, you see gun jamming at like the quote unquote worst or best possible moments.
Yeah. Or, hey, most most guns only have like rounds like 10 or 13 rounds. What happens when you use all 13 rounds? Is there going to suddenly have is your clip suddenly going to produce a magic bullet out of nowhere?
Also, you as the viewer or reader, are you going to count how many times this person has fired and then be like, "Oh, that's not real cuz he or she should be out of bullets." Sometimes that does matter, but usually in most cases it doesn't matter.
I mean, we watch enough real life like live action shit where like they don't keep track of that either.
Exactly. And no one cares unless if it actually is unique that it matters.
Like if the focus is the weapons themselves or like the weapons that are used within that specific theme, then yeah, they will pay notice. But for the most part, I don't think we care that much. At least we shouldn't.
Right.
Again, we should not be focusing on how realistic sometimes weapons can be. Again, they are more just tools to convey a theme, to convey an idea, or to convey further character development.
I think another, I guess, very clear line that I draw between physical weapons and magical weapons is the person that is taking the quote-unquote hit or the damage. If, for example, there's an ethereal force like a ghost or a yokai or an oni where it doesn't affect the person, I would consider that more magical than physical. Because if you could damage these mythical ghosts or creatures, then that implies that the physical weapon has the ability to do something outside, again, the confines of conventional reality and conventional laws of nature. And therefore, I would consider it more of a magical weapon, at least, than a physical one.
Yeah. So, like, for example, if like someone uses a club and smashes somebody and it causes bruising, yeah, that's, typically what you would expect as a physical reaction to getting hit by a club. Same like you got, slashed by a dagger or a sword, your skin would rupture, you start bleeding out. Same thing. But if for some reason, like for example, you get hit by a club and then your skin starts to erode, right? Or it starts to decay, like from like My Hero Academia, like whenever it touches, your skin starts to fall apart. At that point, you then wonder, like, this is no longer a physical thing anymore. Right? So, I realized that we're getting into that gray area again, but again, this also explains why the discussion is not that straightforward.
And we will continue to get close to it, and we're going to have to bring it back. And then similarly with magical weapons, but from the other side, basically. So it is hard to determine sometimes, as it's unsurprisingly, what is considered a physical weapon. But things like durability, practicality, the application, the fact does it break the laws of reality, those things are pretty solid in terms of foundations to defining what a physical weapon is. So there's that. Now, Will, what kind of weapons come to mind when it comes to physical weapons?
There's so many.
I know.
There's so many.
Like, for example, I used to read Bleach, and I think Bleach is okay in general. But I would say some of the weapons in Bleach are pretty good, are pretty cool.
Are you talking about pre-Bankai or post-Bankai? Like when you look at the Zanpakuto, right? And then you have the Bankai moment. There is one thing you can't deny, though. Pre and post, all the weapons look pretty sick.
Yeah, except they're recycled like 15 times. But yes.
Hey, man, like what else do you want Bleach to do? Like we've already like stepped in and spat on Bleach so many times.
But to be fair, like I think Bleach has a decent amount of action scenes, and their use of weapons is very distinctive of that series. And it goes without saying that if we talk about Bleach, weapons is pretty much the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, like if you take away the Quincy's arrows, you take away the Shinigami's swords, like you're not going to be watching Bleach anymore.
Now, even though those things are quote unquote not within the laws of reality, because there's a physical form. Again, gray area. We're defining magical weapons mainly as spells and incantations and powers and abilities. So, for this purpose, Bleach's weapons are physical weapons. Now, one of, I think, the most well-known anime and manga physical weapon, and almost purely physical, is Berserk. I think Berserk is not only a very good series, very long, and very well-known, but it is, in a high fantasy world, these swords and the trademark, like, what do you call it? Great sword, bastard sword?
Yeah.
Is so, like, if I think of Berserk, the first thing that comes to mind is guts and the sword. I don't think of anything else first.
For the most part, when it's like whenever you watch anything that's based in like a fantasy or like a medieval kind of setting, you usually think, oh, like swords and shields. You think like maces, like morning stars, spears, bows and arrows, crossbows, and that kind of shit. But then you see that one person walking on the field and they have a massive two-handed weapon, especially it being a sword. Like, we're not talking about just no axes. We're not talking about halberds and stuff like that. We're talking about a fucking sword that is as big and as wide as an average human being.
Yep.
Like, you know that person walking on the scene is...
It's going to wreck some shit.
Is about to fuck shit up.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to, they're fully capable of it, and you don't want to piss them off.
Exactly. So, I think in terms of swords, another well-known sword is from Demon Slayers. Those are very, I wouldn't say unique, but for example, like there are certain, I guess, pillars, right? Their followers, like the butterfly people, their sword is like a rapier versus your traditional samurai sword.
Yeah, your katanas are, again, when we're talking about Japanese weapons, you can't say anything other than the katana being the iconic weapon, right? You might have your kunai and your shurikens, and actually, I'll talk about this, and then we'll bring it back to your discussion of the Demon Slayer thing.
Sure.
Kunais and Shurikens are always fucking useless in every anime I've watched.
Nah.
They barely do anything. But when you see a katana on the scene, you know damn well that shit is about to go off.
Okay, so I'm trying my best not to talk about spoilers, so I will be as vague as possible. But there is a fight in Naruto where is before Shippuden, so
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And a kunai or kind of weapon is used to deceive someone. So there was that. Then there is a fight in an examination where a person with very superior intellect uses a kunai and the environment to gain the upper hand and win that battle.
Yeah. I guess when it's used as like the weapon itself, like you throw a shuriken, you throw a kunai, almost always it gets battered away.
But
when you see a katana on your scene, this is the moment.
So you didn't get I didn't get to say the second half, which was, so those examples, they are like like employee of the month, employee of the year, right? But then you have like the millions and millions and trillions of shurikens and kunais that are just like, well, you guys are useless. That's the point I was trying to make.
Can you imagine if they made it live action and you think about how many times they have to throw a shuriken, or it's like, I have to pick this shit up again.
Oh, fuck. Will. Did you hear about the anime adaptation of, oh, I was a salaryman and then died and got reincarnated as a useless kunai?
That would actually... Oh, wow, look at you.
Yeah, bro.
That's $1 million idea right there.
Patent that shit. Trademark that. Okay, so...
Yo, Square Enix, we got a light novel for you.
But katanas are just badass, and in this case, in terms of Japanese culture, whether it's anime or manga or historically speaking, like factually historically speaking, the weapon of the katana, and even, as Will says, the attitude and philosophy of the way of the samurai matters so much and is so ingrained in that historical aspect of Japanese people.
In terms of like militaristic ranking and power, like the way of the samurai, therefore the way of the katana, the way of the blade, is extremely, extremely important to Japanese culture. Therefore, like whenever you see a katana, you know damn well that this is going to be a good focus for however long this episode runs.
I mean, for example, when samurais were to lose honor and kind of regain it back and commit seppuku. They use their katana, and it is, I mean, if just like the description of it is actually pretty gruesome, but the fact that it holds so much weight, and the fact that it can't just be any sword, it has to be my sword because I have to redeem my honor because I dishonored you or like threw shame on my family or whatever. So it is extremely important. The katana is without a doubt integral to Japanese culture and in Japanese anime and manga, bro.
Especially in respect to Demon Slayer as well. The katana is extremely integral as well.
Right, because yes, you can do those water arts, those fire arts with the katana, but without it, what can you do?
Not to mention as well, it's like it looks fucking awesome.
I mean,
right?
Look, UFO table, you guys are doing fine, man. I mean, not with the tax stuff, but yeah, you guys are doing okay.
Yeah, like imagine they changed the blades into, I don't know, like a regular two-handed sword that you see from like medieval times, or like maybe like a rapier or like a dagger of sorts. It just wouldn't have the same effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's about symbolism, right? It's about honor. It's about the portrayal of like the highest of high accolades when it comes to militaristic power.
Did you say symbolism?
Symbolism.
There you go.
I tried to say symbolic, and then
I know exactly what it is. So I just thought it was pretty funny. So
me no speak English.
So Will, even though we haven't quote unquote really got into magical weapons, even though we have kind of given, kind of a foreshadowing of what we're going to talk about, what are kind of your points of counterpoints towards why physical weapons are superior than magical weapons?
Ooh, that one's a hard one to answer, because you can easily make an excuse for why magical weapons are more superior.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, like, the amount of destruction you can do with a magic weapon, or just magic in general, is vast, right?
It's like limitless in a way, right?
Yeah. And it's also like the fact that it's like when you say, for example, like casting like a spell that could set fires in like 100-mile radius compared to what a measly sword can do. But in terms of like the world of anime and manga, the main thing that we always have that drives the MC is passion. It's about obsession. It's about not Calvin Klein. Passion, obsession, Calvin Klein. It's more the fact that characters tend to like doing things with their own hands, with their own grit, with their own determination to be able to achieve what was deemed impossible, right? Like, literally impossible is nothing here. Nothing is impossible.
Bro, we can't do that, man. We're gonna get sued, bro.
It's okay. Well, no, it's not okay to get sued, but we won't get sued. So, like,
yeah, no one will listen.
But I think most of the time, whenever we watch any of these kinds of supernatural or fantasy-based anime that do have weapons occasionally fighting against magic users, you usually see the magic users like dominate for like 90% of the fight, and then all of a sudden, their heart starts to pump a little faster. Their eyes widen. The grip on their sword tightens even harder, and then all of a sudden, they just innately channel that adrenaline, that gusto that they had to be able to overcome these obstacles. Like, case in point, like, it's not a weapon, right? But there's nothing more iconic than the Rock Lee and Gaara fight from Naruto.
Oh my god, yeah, dude, you're right. I forgot about that. That is in my mind, the pinnacle of physical versus. Well, in this case, it's hand to hand, but magical versus something that is more grounded in non-magical properties, right?
Right? Using chakra to manipulate your environment, whereas with Rock, he's just using his own bare hands and feet.
Exactly. So even though we did say we exclude hand-to-hand combat, like that example and that fight is actually a very, very good illustration of the difference in terms of the physical versus the magical. I think also another important thing that personally I've realized in all sorts of media is that because magic in a way by definition is beyond the laws of reality, it's in some ways limitless and defined by the creator, the property or whatever, or the in-world way. But usually they purposely try to basically nerf the magical weapons. So such that, for example, if you play video games, you play Japanese RPGs, or you play anything, mana points is used to cast spells. But when you're out of mana, your spells are useless. But your sword is never useless.
Yeah, it's the same in Naruto as well, right? You can have all the chakra in the world, but then once you deplete it, you can no longer do your ninjutsu or your genjutsu. And then that's when you have to tie into using your taijutsu instead, which is what Rock Lee and Guy has been training all their lives for.
Yeah. So I think that
it's about the heart, man.
It's not only about that, but it's also about consistency, right? The foundation is rock solid, because I feel like a lot of people try to meet halfway where they try to nerf physical weapons or physical abilities in their world and kind of enhance the physical weapons, kind of be like, oh, the if you change your grip or something, all of a sudden you can strike a boulder in half or whatever.
Here's another example as well. Jobless reincarnation, right? When Rudy gets born and he starts to train, right? The parents knew he's going to be a mage. He's going to be a magic user. But his dad's like, no. Before he does any of that, I'm training him in the basics of hand-to-hand and weapon-based combat. And then you just see him training him using like the swords, getting his footing down, his footwork, knowing how to position and parry fights. Because then the next part is when he starts actually learning how to use magic. He then uses those magic abilities to try and trick his dad, right? With like throwing dust in the air, creating like little shards of like glass, and then like aiming it towards him. But every single time he does that, his dad knows, in terms of the most basic militaristic maneuvers, how to overcome those magic elements. With all of a sudden, he made quicksand on the ground. Oh, he knows how to adjust his footing to be able to get out. Oh, all of a sudden, like these glass shards start falling towards him. He knows how to use his sword to parry them or to deflect them, and then he's still able to beat a magic user because of the fact that he has very strong grounding in militaristic basics.
I think that, and this would be my last point in terms of the physical and magical weapons, which is superior, is kind of, in many ways, the limitations. So, as I said, with magical weapons, you get like mana, right? But fine. Typically, in all sorts of media, the mage is always like the weak one that hides in the back, that casts the massive important spells, but is super weak in terms of physical capabilities. So, in a way, I would say one of the greatest weaknesses that I've noticed in terms of magical weapons, that physical weapons are superior, is complacency. Because with rigidity, and because physical weapons are more adaptable. Because, for example, if you cast a spell, you are stuck and you have to do the incantation or you have to do the chanting, or it is so powerful that you get lazy. Whereas you get the physical guy, you get the Saitama who does 100 push-ups, working his ass off. You get the Rock Lee and Guy who literally had to overcome all these barriers. So similarly to what you're saying about the heart, Will, because they're playing life on hard mode. So this, if you were to come at me with like really tough shit, if I was playing life on hard mode, it would just be like another day, another walk in the park. But maybe for a mage, they're like, bro, if I can't cast my spells, I'm useless.
Yeah, survival instinct is one thing that like you get ingrained. Again, it's like we're going back to the whole D&D thing, right? We're fighters. For them, like they know death is around the corner at any minute, so they're always fighting to be able to save their own neck and accept that death at some point is an inevitability. But when you're playing like a more like magic based kind of character, or like when you're watching magic based characters in an anime, a lot of times those are their safety nets. They're able to cast something to be able to either imbue themselves with like a magic shield, or cast like fire out of their hands to crowd control, or to just do massive amounts of damage. And you're always like, ha ha ha, I'm so fucking strong, you can't do shit to me. But then when you start getting closer and closer and you beat up all those obstacles, you get to them, they start pissing their pants. So like, yeah, most of the time magic users, typically they get more portrayed as meek and weak, mild and just small.
Yeah, I know. Then that's not to say that there aren't examples that counter that.
Oh yeah, no. There are, the part when you start seeing those buff magic users, at that point, like forget everything.
Right.
Like, this is not a fair battle at all.
But like edge cases aside, I agree, Will, that the portrayal of Magic users is because they are academic, they're book smart, they are more intellectual, so to speak. The physical users are more superior in terms of strength and adaptability and survivability in general.
We're not going through the whole sort of like nerd versus jock, brain versus brawn kind of discussion. This is just merely just what we have seen in anime and manga, and therefore, like when it comes to the battle between magic and physical weapons, that's just usually how it plays out. And we're basing this off of our own personal observations.
All right. So now that we have gone on for quite a bit about the discussions, which I honestly really like, another thing that Will and I really like is to recommend anime or mangas to watch if you so desire to choose the camp of physical weapons over magical. So, Will, how do you want to go? We have a number of anime and mangas to recommend.
We got a couple. I mean, like obviously we're not going to go through all of them because like there are going to be some very notable weapons, like for example the wooden sword from Gintama or the gun like from Vash Stampede in Trigun, even the sword from Blood Plus, all that shit, right? But what we want to more talk about is where the weapons themselves can be the center of focus, or they help to enhance your enjoyment of a specific anime series, which we'll go over. I think we have 8 in total.
8 or 9, yeah.
8 or 9.
But right? I would say let's start off with a banger, bro. Let's start off, at least from my perspective, like because we're going to alternate, right? Well, I'm assuming. Let's start with Black Lagoon.
I'm so happy you got onto it.
So Black Lagoon is based on the manga of the same name by Rei Hiroe.
Yeah.
And it was published in English by Viz Media. The current status is okay. Let me just talk about the facts first, and then we'll go back to the current status. So it premiered in spring 2006, produced by Madhouse Studios. The total anime run is 2 seasons and an OVA, with the OVA being 5 episodes. And
we won't mention the name of it because it's kind of a spoiler.
Yep, and I watched it. I watched only the first season, but I really want to watch the rest of it on Netflix. I mean, it's not just on Netflix, but I watched it there. All right, well, going back to earlier what I was saying, the status of the manga is actually
so fucking unknown.
So can you just spend like 30 seconds explaining that?
So they have been having a consistent run of releases for a couple of years. Then in 2010, Ray decided to go on a major hiatus, and it just stopped for 5 years. 2015, it came back. And then after that, another 5 years of nothing. So they went not just through one major hiatus, but 2, both of them being 5 years long. Now, last year and this year, they've gone back to regular circulation. So it looks like things are back on again, though we never know if another hiatus is around the corner.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, Will has said numerous times that Black Lagoon is one of his top 10 personal favorite animes of all time. And I've always been kind of iffy in terms of my feelings on it, because I think I watched it a long time ago, because I remember one episode in particular that involves a submarine, but I don't remember a lot of everything else. So I decided to rewatch Black Lagoon, and it's actually really good. Like, it's basically piracy, right? Like, they're pirates, bro.
Yeah, that's literally what a pirate's life is.
Oh, so you are a salaryman, and this guy, and you basically got hung out to dry. You're the scapegoat. All right, fuck the corporate world. I'm just gonna be a motherfucking pirate. That is Black Lagoon.
It's incredible because the fact that it focuses not just like on these pirates, but like just the whole like crime syndicate underworld that spans globally.
Yeah, it's not just the one culture. It's literally different nationalities. Everything is crazy.
Every single syndicate you can think of, right, will eventually make some sort of appearance.
In some capacity, yeah.
So if you like that kind of stuff, right? You like gangster documentaries, or just videos about like crime in general, not because you like crime, but because you find the topic of itself interesting. Please don't get into crime; it's a terrible thing. But this is
we are not speaking from experience,
yeah.
But in general, it's pretty easy to say crime is not a good thing to do.
This is really good. Like in a similar way, where like Banana Fish is kind of similar, like in terms of talking about crime syndicates. Banana Fish is really good. but weapons themselves don't really make much of a difference.
I have to say, though, it is a crime that I kind of pushed Black Lagoon to the side.
Well, you saved yourself in the end. I mean, like, how did you find season 1?
So I will tell you my score first, which is I gave it a 9 out of 10. 4.5 stars out of 5 stars. So not like 10 out of 10, like the greatest of all time. But to get to 9 is actually pretty impressive in my opinion. I think that even though this came out in 2006, the widescreen HD version looks pretty fantastic. Even though the aesthetics of it is very of that era. Not to say that it's old school. In fact, if anything, they don't really do that kind of style anymore.
Yeah, it's very much a mid-2000s Madhouse style.
Like, I think of Hellsing, that almost has the exact same kind of style. Hellsing Ultimate, though. So I really, really, really like the characters because they are a treasure trove of just weirdness, and weird in a way that is also grounded in reality because we're talking about physical weapons here. Things like grenades, RPGs, missiles, shotguns, and in terms of trademark weapons, the dual-wielding Revy.
Berettas, specifically.
What's her nickname? Two Shot?
Yeah. She basically, like, if she doesn't kill you with the first shot, she'll kill you with the second.
So, bro, Revy is the main titular female character, and she's the only female character within the pirate group. She is so badass. She wrecks shit. She is unhinged. And it is really interesting to see the dynamics between her and the salaryman person that turned into a pirate that I mentioned earlier. Because the guy called Rock, even though that's not his name, but people are like, no, you're Rock. That's it. End of story. Okay. And then he's like, fine, I'll deal with it. He is your typical salaryman with his kind of demeanor of like salaryman, basically.
Yeah. Revy is basically extreme nihilistic Mikasa. Living life with reckless abandon.
Yo, yeah, that's exactly right.
Because, like, okay, not spoilers, but like Mikasa has gone through some shit in AOT, so therefore she's relatively numb to what life holds for her. Rather, she cares more about those around her, and she'll do whatever it takes to protect them. Revy, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily protect those around her, but she recognizes good intention because of the fact that she's been wrong so many times. It takes a lot for her to trust people, and she does trust you. She might not show it, but she will care.
And I think it's really interesting that, in my opinion, Revy's form of love and care is so warped and distorted compared to what a typical person would say is love and care. Not to say that she is twisted and a terrible person. Okay, she's a pirate, but because her upbringing, which is implied only in the first season a little bit, she is very broken. And because of that, that's all she knows. And she's trying her best to be as, quote unquote, affectionate as possible in certain cases, except unless if you know her as a person, you'll be like, dude, that is what the fuck, man.
Yeah, and that's usually what you would see, because when she turns the Berettas on you, Jesus fucking Christ, you could definitely put her in like the discussion of like the best gunslinger in anime.
Absolutely, the best dual wielder of all time, probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people like iconic with guns in anime. I mean, one of the most iconic would be like Vash, right, from Trigun. You got Spike from Cowboy Bebop, but like again,
but with Spike in particular, the gun is just a gun. It's not double Beretta that they focus on in Black Lagoon.
Much like when we were talking about Guts with his two-hander like bastard sword, like the Berserker sword. Mm-hmm. When you see someone walking in dual wielding pistols, you know this person lives life on the edge. Like symbolically, this person is living life with complete reckless abandon, no regard for one's safety, and just does whatever is needed to be able to obtain that objective, which in most cases is just to kill everyone she sees.
The last thing that I would say about Black Lagoon is my favorite character shows up towards the latter third of Black Lagoon.
You're going to enjoy the next couple seasons.
And bruh, that character, I'm not going to say names, I'm not going to say much other than a she. I'll say that.
And in one rare instance, I agree. She's also my favorite character.
Okay.
She's oh god.
Okay. No. We can't do this.
I want to
We can't-
rewatch this now.
All right. So that is my first recommendation and Will's constant recommendation of Black Lagoon.
Yeah. So one show that both Jason and I actually watched a couple months ago, actually. It was kind of hard to get into, but so then I decided to watch a couple more episodes just to really understand why this show itself is super popular. The show I'm talking about here is Soul Eater. Now, Soul Eater came out, I think, in the early 2000s and early 2000s. No, actually, actually,
Wait, the anime
part,
or the manga?
the latter part, just the anime itself. Premiered spring 2008. Ran for just over 4 curves, so totaling 51 episodes. Though I think stuff around that time didn't necessarily say like, oh, season 1, season 2, season 3. It kind of just released them and then said, here's a break, here's the next part, da 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 da.
What I will say about 51 episodes is that it is just 1 week shy of a year, and usually that week is the week that all Japanese people go on holiday. I think Golden Week or something like that.
So just basically just work.
Or
like full year.
Or like New Year's Eve, whatever. Yeah, okay. Anyways.
So Soul Eater, done by Bones.
Bones is really good studio.
Yeah, it definitely has a Bones aesthetic as well. It's the show itself is very interesting because of the fact that if anyone here is like familiar with Noragami, it kind of follows a similar weapon style in that the weapons themselves actually have human form. I'm not going to go into the Noragami shit because it actually is kind of a spoiler. But in this case, the weapons are essentially partners of the main Soul Eaters or like the main like Shinigami in this world. So the main thing for them is that for the most part, they'll have a physical form, as in like a sword or like a pair of guns or a pair of scythes, right? Now, one thing I liked about Soul Eater is that it's wacky. It's a very fun show to watch.
It is very wacky, and it reminds me of what Shonen was like.
Yeah. So it essentially follows the 3 main demon hunters. Now, the reason why it was actually kind of like a little bit weird to watch the first, it turns out the first 3 episodes act as a prologue. So episode 1 follows one character, episode 2 the next, episode 3 the next, and then episode 4 onwards, you see them all together. Yeah. So it follows. Yeah, that's why, right? That's why it was like, why are we focusing on these 2 characters only for episode 1 and you see no one else, right? So essentially, there are 3 main demon hunters, right? One is named Maka Alburn, who's just focused in the first episode. The second episode is focused on Black Star. And then the third episode follows Death to Kid. So, Maka Alburn has a big ass scythe.
Okay. What about the second one?
He has a
Dual sickle?
Dual sickles.
Right. And what about the third one, which I don't know.
The third one, so get this, he dual wields guns as well.
Okay.
He has
have my attention, bro.
He has a pair of Thompsons.
Like as in like the old school mafia gun?
As in, no, just basically the girls are actually called Thompson. One's called Patricia, and one's called Patty, one's called Lizzie.
Okay, yeah, go on.
Now, the weird thing, however, is that I think it's actually more gimmicky than anything. He holds his guns upside down. So he pulls the trigger with his pinkies. Yeah. But he's very good at it. He's very, very good at it.
I mean, if that's how you
That's
do
the
it.
main shtick for him.
If that's how you've been doing it all along, who are we to judge, right? But my God, what a gimmick, right?
Yeah. So the main purpose of this discussion for this topic is that we want to talk about the weapons, right? So this is where it kind of again reaches that gray area because the weapons themselves also have human form. So you actually see them just walking around like side by side, but when they actually start going into battle, boom, change into weapon form.
So therefore, we considered it physical weapons because when they are their physical weapon form,
They do what the weapon is supposed to do.
they can talk though, but it's just like in that case a normal weapon, right?
Oh, yeah, when what's his name? When Soul Eater transforms into the scythe, he literally slashes like a scythe. When the two Thompson twins like transform into their guns, they just fire regular bullets. Nothing new, nothing magical.
All right. So, what is your take on your opinion on Soul Eater?
So Soul Eater is an interesting discussion because of the fact that it's not that original. A lot of stuff around that time was very much focused on like the whole Shinigami demon kind of
Cashing in on that trend, yeah.
Yeah. So the show is quite decent. I quite like it. The music is really cool. I do like the music. And to this day, it still remains very popular. I think it's in the top 50 or no.
The manga is in the top 50 in terms of popularity, I think.
Anime, it's 52. So close to it.
Oh, okay.
Almost 1.4 million members on my anime list.
That's a lot of members.
I can see why, because it definitely focuses a lot on like the typical shonen action trio tropes that you see in like Bleach, in Hunter x Hunter, in One Piece, in Naruto,
Jujutsu Kaisen,
yeah, and soon to be Chainsaw Man. So yeah, like I like it because all the characters themselves are fundamentally stupid. Like they're all really dumb characters, and it's just great because it's just one of those things. It's so tropey that you just see them like, how the hell did you not figure this out in the first place? How did you just? But then the last 2 minutes, when all of a sudden their IQ hits 420/69 XXX, all of a sudden
360 no scope, right?
Yeah, they no scope that shit, and all of a sudden you're just like, wow, they're actually really fucking dope. I like it. It's the weapons themselves, like the human form of weapons and switching back and forth. It doesn't really feel that gimmicky. And you start to like feel more of an affinity to these characters. You just like want to see like why they became demon hunters. Why are they so like fixated on using these specific weapons?
So it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will, that even though Soul Eater is a very quote unquote typical shonen, it's done well enough, and there's enough of a spin or twist such that it is a very solid entry in the shonen genre, but it doesn't break any grounds.
The characters themselves make it. Not to mention the weapon choices also make it. Yeah, I understand if you're like a demon hunter and you're using a scythe or a sickle, cool. I mean, it's very appropriate to the theme, right?
Oh, I don't know what Grim Reapers are, man.
Yeah, but then again, I gotta say, there are two things I really didn't like about Soul Eater, which is why the hell the guy dual wields guns with his pinkies. And this is just a slate. I don't want to be super harsh, but the voice acting for Maka Alburn I thought was really bad.
And the fact that she's a main character, right?
I mean, you watched the first episode. What did you think? Do you remember it?
It was all right. It was all right. It was like it reminds me of like a whiny girl.
Yeah, but she sounds really nasally too.
Yeah.
And like it was just really like it actually hurt to hear her voice. I'm sorry, whoever your whatever your name is, but I did see that she also voice acted as one of the supporting characters in Bungo Stray Dogs, one that I actually really liked, and she sounds way better.
Okay,
she's a lot better in that one. So thank you for getting better. All right, so we talked about Black Lagoon. We talked about Soul Eater. We're running out of time. So
yeah, okay.
What's next?
I think one of the most interesting animes that I've watched for this is called World End. The full title, which is based on a light novel of the same name, is called World End: What do you do at the end of the world? Are you busy? Will you save us?
It literally just sounds like someone just spam texting you. It's like, hey bro, are you with us? You want to save me? Hey, what are you gonna do at the end of the world?
The light novel is currently published in full in English by Yen Press. There is a manga adaptation, but no official English stuff. And there is a spin-off and sequels. The anime premiered in 2017 spring. There is only 12 episodes, and it is produced by Satellite and C2C, which is kind of like okay-ish studios. But I would say that this is the dark horse anime because it's really hard to describe what it's about other than there is this guy who saves the world and then gets petrified and then wakes up 500 years later and turns out that humanity has been wiped out. Everyone lives in the skies as levitating islands, and there are all these, I guess, different races that have propped up instead of humans, and he is the last remaining human. But okay, he is tasked somehow with managing a weapon storage facility. So he's like, fine, I'll just do that. He shows up to this so-called weapon storage facility, and it's full of little kids. And he's like, why? What's going on? And that is the start, the first episode of World End. And it just gets way, way crazier every single episode, almost to the end, where every episode they build on it. On this, like, it's just weird. It's just, they build on layers and layers and layers, because it turns out that these kids are weapons. I'm just going to leave it at that.
What the
Yep.
And actually, that's actually pretty perfect that after I talked about Soul Eater.
Exactly. And there actually is not that much action. There is like a huge action scene in the end. But instead, it focuses on the main guy, Wilhelm, who is the caretaker of this facility. And it talks about, you know that saying, like when people go to war and then there's like the wife who has to wait for the person to come back, and they don't know if they are alive or dead until they come back. Or in Saving Private Ryan, some guy comes in, it's not the husband, so he dies or whatever in battle.
They walk over and they pull out a medal and a letter.
So Wilhelm is basically that. And it talks about like how fucked up life and war can be. And it's actually really, really good. I gave it an 8.5, but more 8 than 9 out of 10. So basically 4 stars.
You finished it, right?
Finished it this morning, and shit gets real. I really want to know what happens, but I'm not going to read light novels. But you should watch the anime. It's really good.
Right. Okay. So that sounds interesting too. Actually, a lot of these shows that we have on this list are very interesting. The next one I want to talk about is, so you know how I talked about demon hunters?
Yeah.
Right? Well, what if you want to become a demon hunter, but it turns out you are a demon yourself?
Oh, bro.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so
You're hunting your own kind?
It's not a spoiler, by the way, those who think it is, because it literally happens in the first episode. So come at me if you're angry with me. So this is... The show is called Blue Exorcist, and I really like the show. So Blue Exorcist came out in 2015, I think? Maybe sooner than that.
2011.
Yeah.
Spring.
Yeah. Done by A1 Pictures. So 2 things are guaranteed. 1, it's going to look gorgeous, which it does. And 2, it's going to sound gorgeous, which it also does. The music in the show is fucking great. I really do like the show. Now, there's going to be a bit of a disclaimer in terms of like, watching Soul Eater. Not Soul Eater, sorry, I'm talking about the Blue Exorcist. So Blue Exorcist was coming out at the same time when the manga was getting syndicated concurrently. So that basically meant that it had the issue of...
Oh, so it's the Full Metal Alchemist versus Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood kind of scenario.
Yep, except that there is no Brotherhood, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of the stuff was kind of adapted out from the manga and more based on anime original adaptation. So it does mean that, spoilers again, the ending is anime exclusive. It's not going to be the same as what happens in the manga. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that the anime itself is very enjoyable. So it basically follows a kid named Rin Okumura. So he's just some whippersnapper, a 15-year-old, who just basically has that angry kid syndrome where he's just like, everyone's against me, fuck everyone, I don't trust anybody, except he trusts his dad. Until one day, all of a sudden, demons start showing up, and he's like, wait, why am I seeing all this shit? This is weird. Why am I seeing all these like ethereal apparitions and all that? And then it turns out that demons have now taken over the earth, and they need to do something about it. And he gets handed a sword. The father, before having to send him off, says, "Take the sword with you. Don't let anyone else touch it. This is what we use to protect you." Then he goes off to a demon academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And
it turns out his brother, who is younger than him, is also a professor at that school because he's been learning about demonology for the longest time.
Younger than him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, again, this happens in episode 2, so don't at me. But he starts getting mad. He's like, why did you tell me that? Why you knew that I was a demon this whole time? Why did you betray me? I believed you. I believed your dad. And blah 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 blah. He's really angry. Like, nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. And then the brother starts talking about how he's always cared about him. You don't know nothing, and that you should just shut your mouth because
Sasuke, is that you?
basically stop being edgy, bro. But then all of a sudden, demons start showing up again, and guess what happens? Just like in the other other series talked about, this guy pulls out dual-wielded desert eagles and just starts blasting fools, just shooting fucking ghosts and demons everywhere. And then it turns out that in this world of demon hunting, there are 5 master classes. One, which is focused on the way of the gun, and one which is focused on the way of the sword. There's also one which is based on the way of arcane and divine lore, so basically like casting spells and chanting and all that. It's just like, oh, but fuck that. This guy, oh, you carry a sword with you. You should be a sword master. Oh, yeah. That's how I'm going to defeat the demon lord. I'm going to become a demon hunting sword master. And that's literally the show. It's fucking dumb, but it's also incredible because it doesn't take itself that seriously. At least from what I've seen so far. I've only watched about 7 episodes. It gets pretty slice of life. There's a Shokugeki moment in this series as well. It's incredible. It's a fun watch. The sword itself is also pretty awesome because it's one of those full katanas with the hilts and all that, but it's a full black blade because it's called Blue Exorcist. No, right. I don't know why. No, it's just really cool to see that the fighting animation is dope. It's also fun to see another dual-wielding maniac just shooting ghosts out of nowhere when everyone's just like, why is there a guy holding guns in the middle of Tokyo just shooting?
Right. Okay. So that is your recommendation, right?
It's a fun time, 25 episodes. There is a second season called the Kyoto Saga.
That takes place in Kyoto?
I assume so. The issue with the Kyoto Saga is that because of what happens in the anime exclusive ending, they kind of did a reverse. So rather than just going along with the anime ending and then merging it back with the manga, they decided to just basically throw every manga source into it and retcon some stuff. So watch it at your own discretion. I think like if you really wanted the full experience, the manga is still ongoing. Go ahead and read the manga. It's not hard to get. But at the same time, the anime itself is worth watching. Don't let the score dissuade you. I'm giving it an 8 at this stage.
Okay. I think we only get enough time for one more recommendation each. So I'm going to recommend Jormungand, which is based on the manga of the same name, published in English by Viz Media. It's currently finished. There's 11 volumes, 70 chapters. The first season premiered in spring 2012, made by White Fox Studios, and then season 2 came out in fall of 2012. It's subtitled Perfect Order. Now, Jormungand is probably...
Did you find out if it's pronounced Jormungand or is it Jormungand?
Jormungand.
Whatever.
I feel
it's
bad.
a good show though, right?
So, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex is one of my favorite shows of all time. Not only because I love Ghost in the Shell, but it's a very well done show. It comprises of a team of people, and every so often you get the team to go on excursions or adventures, and sometimes you would focus on each individual member and their backstory and whatnot. A very similar anime of that description is Kekai Sensen, which is Battle Blood Blockade, that I think is also really good. Jormungand is like exactly that. It is the leader is Coco, who is kind of a white-haired, blue-eyed woman, and she has her bodyguards, one of them being a child soldier, who is Yona, or Jonah, if you will, and he is the latest addition to the team. And what business they do, I said kid soldier, is because she deals in weapons. She deals in arms. She buys and sells guns. She kind of starts wars, that kind of thing. And she is very cunning, very devious, and also very smart. And then there's all these interactions with other arms dealers, military, revolutions, guns fucking up people, a lot of blood and guts actually, and just psychopaths. And Jormungand, I would say, is an absolute fantastic watch. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I would definitely watch season 2. And it is just good because they don't only focus on the titular character Coco, they also focus on the team, and they're like a band of brothers / sisters, and it's a great show. It's kind of like each episode is their own adventure, or every 2 episodes is because they say phase 1 and phase 2, then you know it's part 1, part 2. Some episodes are standalone, and they focus sometimes on a character, or they focus on the group on an adventure and how to overcome it. It's really good. You should watch it, like 100%.
Oh yeah, it's been on my watch list for the longest time, and I'm glad that you pulled the trigger, which makes it much more likely that I'll pull the trigger myself as well.
It is as close to Black Lagoon as you can get, in my opinion.
Without being Black Lagoon.
Exactly.
Black Lagoon standards are super high for me, man. But you vouch for it?
I think Jormungand is... You might give it a 9.5.
Damn.
At least a 9. If you give it an 8.5 or below, I think you're wrong.
Wow. Okay.
Based on your taste.
Okay.
Based on your taste.
Damn. I mean, I put it on my watch list for a reason, right? So I can further confirm that later on.
Now, speaking of watch list, this anime, which I'm assuming, are you going to talk about an anime that has been on my watch list forever?
Probably.
And you're going to tell me to...
Well, it's probably not that one, because I was actually going to talk about the other one.
Oh, snap.
Right. So I actually had 2 more I wanted to talk about. One of them being Vinland Saga. But the thing is, I already talked about Vinland Saga.
Yeah, that's the one I was referencing, yeah.
Yeah, and Vinland Saga's great. Go watch that shit. I think season 2 is going to be coming out soon. I hope so. I don't know.
It's announced, but we don't know when it's coming out.
Just watch it. Or read it. Read it. It's also really well drawn. But,
I'll get around to it, guys.
But the one that I actually wanted to talk about is, so you know how I talked about, like, you know, demon hunting, exorcist shows, like, you know, both Soul Eater is about demon hunters exorcising demons, and then Soul Eater is just the same thing. Like, Blue Exorcist is the same thing. Well, it'd be remiss to miss out on a hat trick and go for a third one, right? Yes, I'm going to be talking about a third demon hunting exorcist show, D. Gray Man. D. Gray Man is a fucking classic. Okay, so D. Gray Man came out for the manga, by the way. It came out in 2004, and it's still ongoing, though its release schedule is a bit like, we don't really know. The manga is very highly rated and also extremely popular, but the anime itself is slightly controversial in terms of how popular it is. It's still actually very popular, but in terms of its revival, it's taken a bit of a hit. So the anime premiered in 2006, during the fall season, done by TMS Entertainment. So huge studio, done a lot of shit. I mean, they're the same team that did One Piece, right? So 103 episodes for the quote-unquote first season. Though they do split it into 4 parts, apparently. They split it into 4 parts. There were some licensing issues in terms of who would be able to actually license. For example, like Funimation Entertainment only had the first 51 episodes. Then Zetsu came along, and then Funimation came back and took it again. Whatever. There is then a sequel that came out in 2016 summer, also by TMS. It adapts the next couple of chapters of the manga. It's only okay, but I'm only talking about the first main series because I'm not going to be watching 103 fucking episodes in like a week. Like, are you crazy?
It's hilarious because your recommendations consists of Black Lagoon, which I talked about and I vouch, but that contains multiple seasons. There is Blue Exorcist, multiple seasons. Soul Eater, which is 51 episodes, and now D. Gray Man, which is
103.
Jesus.
Like, just enjoy it. You're in for the long run.
Yeah, if you're into long-running shows, look no further.
Yeah. So, D. Gray Man follows the story of essentially exorcising demons. Now, demons in this world are called akuma, which, if you translate it into English, akuma means devil, right? Or demon, right? Specifically.
Yes, like Akudama Drive, and also the Street Fighter character.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the main sort of like villain of this world is called the Millennium Earl. And he essentially is creating all these demons, these akumas, to destroy fragments called innocence. And innocence is the only weapon that's capable of harming him and his army because they are essentially the light that shines on the darkness that's fallen across the land over the past hundreds of years ago that brought up the Great Flood. Now, in order to prevent...
Great Flood?
Yeah, to prevent another Great Flood, They then formed an organization called the Black Order in order to fight the Earl, and they recruit exorcists, those who have powers to accommodate innocents with them, and then imbue the innocents to trap Akumas.
Wait. The organization is called the Black Order, but the anime is called D Gray Man.
Yeah.
Why?
Because
Why didn't they call it Gray Order?
I haven't got that far. But the main character, his name is Alan Walker. Yeah.
That's the most generic John Doe name I've ever heard.
I mean, there's Alan Walkers in every facet of life, right? He's a writer. He's a crime syndicate leader. He's now a fucking exorcist. The one thing for him is that he is armed with an innocence weapon in his left arm. So basically, it's like a huge kind of like claw that can expand. Again, it's not magic because it's not like imbued anything, but he does have a cursed left eye. With Akuma power. So he is cursed, but he's still human because within the story, only humans can be cursed with Akuma. So the thing is, right, like it all sounds extremely ridiculous, but
I'm rolling my eyes so hard.
I actually would recommend this as like a serious watch because it does tap into the philosophy of morality, of heaven and earth and hell. Compared to Soul Eater and Blue Exorcist, which are more sort of like jovial, kind of have fun takes on exorcism and demon hunting, like I would watch Soul Eater and Blue Exorcist for fun because you can definitely get enjoyment out of it. But it's a more serious watch for Blue Exorcist. Not to mention it's older than the other two. It's the oldest one of the four I recommended. Damn, none of the shows I've mentioned are like that. Like even Blue Exorcist came out 10 years ago. But it looks very, very recent.
I mean, Jormungand is really old, like 2012, and same with Black Lagoon is 2006, so, you know.
Classics, right? At this point. You can deem them as classics now. So D Gray Man is very interesting. I do like this show, but it's because it's a show that you need to take seriously. You can't just sit back and enjoy, because it has those funny moments. It does, right? But like, so did FMA, so did Demon Slayer, but there are times when shit gets real, that you have to really like focus and get a little stoic and just watch shit unfold on screen. The weapons in the movie in the series are fantastic as well because it's very much heavenly weapons fighting against evil darkness that is the Akuma and the Millennium Earl. It's the names.
Is it very action packed?
Half.
Okay,
half.
That's good.
It's a very good mix.
So would you say seinen-ish?
Bordering.
Okay.
Because there's some really fucked up shit in there too. Like you don't really get that much in Soul Eater and Blue Exorcist. Not that much fucked up shit goes on. It's still very PG-13. This one can borderline be like M or R, whichever location you're in, or whatever destination you have for adult material, like mature material.
Okay. One last thing. I watched Akame ga Kill a little bit, and it's probably one of the most popular weapons-oriented shows of all time, and I don't like it. So please don't watch Akame ga Kill.
I mean, like when you were telling me about it, you were like really struggling to put together your sentences for how you felt about Akame ga Kill.
Oh, right, because it's a starry-eyed guy who arrives in the big city trying to make a name for himself, but then, like, he gets swindled and loses all his money. Oh, someone comes over, is like, oh, you should join an assassin's guild. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. All these people started dying. That's super edgy. That's super violent. Oh, wow. Blah, 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 blah.
How's the fan service?
If I want to watch shows that have good fan service,
High School DxD.
Akame ga Kill is not that.
Just watch High School DxD.
All right. So, watch High School of the Dead, actually.
That one's a good one.
If you want boobs and blood and zombies and bats. In fact, that was my last recommendation. So
Physics.
Boob physics is very important in that show.
Matrix boobs.
Okay. That is the end of our episode, of our main discussion topic at least. You can always reach us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com. That's GAPALETTE@gmail.com. All lowercase, all one word. You can also contact us on Twitter using the handle @PaletteGood. That's capital P and capital G, all one word. We have a Facebook page, www.facebook.com/PaletteGood, capital P, capital G, all one word. We have a website, www.goodanimepalette.com, all lowercase, all one word. You can join us on Discord. We have a Mao Club. You can email us for invites, or you can just join it yourself. Music credits for this episode. Our intro music is Glitterati by Morrow. Our break music is Up and Down by Toby Tranter. And our outro music is Sunset Dew by Lupus Nocte. Our music was provided courtesy of epidemicsound.com. If you're interested in using Epidemic Sound as a service, we have a referral link that is provided in the show description. I just got the hiccups. All right, that's the end of my spiel of housekeeping.
All the shows that we recommended just now are definitely like good watches. I would say that Black Lagoon is a must watch, as is Vinland Saga. But I mean, I already talked about Vinland Saga and Black Lagoon. So the other three that I recommended, right? Blue Exorcist, Soul Eater, The Gray Man, you will find enjoyment out of those three. It just depends on what mood you're in.
I also heavily endorse Black Lagoon. Maybe not to the level of Will's enthusiasm, but Will's enthusiasm is super high. And my enthusiasm is above average, or pretty high, but not as high as Will. It's a good show, though.
I put it top 10. You put it like 9 out of 10, which is like still a high regard, right?
Super high regard, though. I don't want to diminish its quality. But I say Jormungand can fight toe-to-toe with Black Lagoon. And I think World End is one of the more interesting animes that I've watched recently. And kind of unexpected, too.
Yeah, so there you go.
And if you just want immature shit that is guilty pleasure, but also bloody good time, High School of the Dead, 100%.
Yeah. I will talk about DxD in the next episode because that's not there's a lot of physical elements, but the weapons are definitely of the more magical taste.
I mean, lower back problems everywhere, man.
Yeah. So be sure to check in our next episode as we continue our weapons discussion. This time around for the next one, focusing on magical weapons.
And I think going forward, Will and I will try to at least have like 2 episodes that are kind of paired together, like 2 sides of the same coin kind of deal. Doesn't necessarily mean we will do that for each podcast season, but, you know, I kind of like doing these double paired episodes.
It works. I mean, like, it definitely means that the stuff we watch is more focused on like specific topics, right? Like, even if it's like magic and physical, like most of the time you do see both of them in the same realm.
Okay, so boobs and butts, which one? Okay, don't answer that. Actually, answer me.
Find out the answer in the next episode of the GAP podcast when we talk about magical tits and ass.
Oh fuck. Okay. See you later, guys.